Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways where we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, also the founder of Bader Training and Consulting, and the author of the book, The Formula for Business Success Equals B plus C plus S, a discussion on brand, culture, strategy, alignment. And in today's episode of Branding the Experience, we're actually going to talk a little bit more about the S portion, the strategy, and how particularly the culture comes into play in that particular scenario of strategic planning, because I want to talk about the dual purpose for planning. Now, I wrote an article on this that was somewhat popular a couple of years ago where I suggested 3 ways to get your employees involved in the strategic planning process. Because the whole idea of branding the experience is creating the experience first for our employees so that they can go and create the experience for our customers. And if we don't get our teams involved in the strategic planning process in one way, shape, or form, we're missing out on a valuable opportunity. In fact, I had the pleasure of going to a seminar a couple of weeks ago specifically for small businesses, and they were talking about business planning. And whether it's business planning or strategic planning or marketing planning, they're all valuable and all, in essence, kind of intertwined and almost synonymous, except for the marketing plan, which is a little bit more specific in the brand marketing area, obviously. But at this seminar, the individual was asked, the educator, the facilitator was asked, what is the main reason to create a business plan? And the expectation was going to be, well, for investors or for the board or something of that matter. But what the facilitator said was very spot on, which was there's only 2 primary reasons to create a plan. One is to inspire employees, and 2 is to create a roadmap. And he basically said number 3, and he says it's a distant third, is if you are trying to attract investors or you're going to a bank for a loan or things of that nature. So that was a distant third. The main reasons, let's say that one more time. The main reasons to create a plan is 1, to inspire employees, and 2, to create a roadmap. I almost literally got out of my chair and gave him a standing ovation, because that's perfectly aligned with what I teach, and was so pleased to hear him teach these budding entrepreneurs and these small business owners that idea, because it is about inspiring employees and it is about creating a roadmap. And if you're going to brand the experience for your employees, then you need to get them involved sooner rather than later. So I suggest 3 things in the help to provide an inspiring experience for your employees, as well as to create that roadmap, because on the roadmap front, who better to start creating that roadmap or to help you see some of the things you may not see on that road than the people that are dealing with customers every day, people that are working on the front lines, or people that are serving those that are serving others, such as your accounting staff or your IT staff. They have customers too. They just happen to be internal customers, so let's not keep them out of the process. They're a valuable piece to this overall strategic planning procedure. So I suggest 3 things. And it's the same 3 that I talk about in the article, which I'm happy to share with you as well. The first one is ask. You know, sometimes the hardest thing is the simplest thing, which is just to be able to ask. It doesn't have to necessarily be a complex process. It can be if you would like it to be, but at the very core, especially if you're a business with maybe a dozen employees, then it makes it a little bit easier, possibly at an all-staff meeting. And if you don't have all-staff meetings, you know, this would be a good time to start with strategic planning, is simply ask, you know, what are the opportunities you see? What are our customers asking from you? What are some of the suggestions that they're making? What are some of the things that you may be seeing at our competitors that you don't see here in our business, or that you see in our competitors that maybe we shouldn't be doing at our particular business? When you ask those open-ended questions, many times you get some very, very valuable insight. So start with ask. And obviously, if you have a great culture which is open and people feel comfortable speaking out in an all-staff meeting in front of everybody else, then that is a great tactic to use. If maybe your culture is a little bit introverted, or you haven't had an all-staff meeting, or maybe you're working on creating a better team environment and you don't necessarily think that you're going to get the input that you'd like in an open setting like a meeting or even a one-on-one, then you could always do an anonymous survey. I've talked about that on this show before. It's not about putting anybody on the spot. It's about giving people the avenues to be able to give their input and insight. So what you may even do, because everybody has a different personality, I do a lot of work with DISC personality assessments, and know that your dominant styles will open up generally in that type of meeting if it's a positive environment. Where even if it is a positive culture, somebody that's more of the steadiness style or the conscientious style, while they may not feel challenged to speak up because of the environment, they may feel challenged because they may be more introverted. So give those folks an avenue as well to say, hey, if you come up with an idea later, feel free to send me an email, or if you want to do it anonymously, drop me a note without your name on it, type it and print it out so I can't tell your handwriting. As the point isn't to put anybody on the spot, it's to open up the avenue and let people know that it's okay to share their insight and ideas, regardless of whether it's negative, regardless of whether you think it's crazy, because maybe that crazy thing that you think is just, I don't even want to say it because it's out of this world, may to a business owner or executive be that very thing that he or she may be thinking of and say, yeah, I was thinking of that too, and I didn't know how to implement it, but this is a darn good idea. Let's roll with it. So number one, ask. Number two is challenge them, and challenge them to determine their goals. Some of the great places that I worked with and for, in fact, I mentioned it in my book, the financial institution that I worked for in the 90s, the first 6 out of 8 years that I worked there had a phenomenal culture. And I remember being 23 years old and just on the job, and my supervisor coming to me and saying, I want you to not only give some ideas, because we're going to get into our strategic planning process soon with the board, but I also want you to develop 2 or 3 goals of what you want to achieve in this business going into next year. And coming from other places where goals were just stamped on me or driven down from management, and I had no say or no involvement, to actually get involved, be invited to be involved, and be asked to give my suggestions on my goals for next year, I can't tell you how great that made me feel. It made me want to come to work for this particular organization. Now, did the goals that I gave my supervisor, were those taken verbatim? No. No, in fact, if I remember the situation properly, I wrote down 3 goals. One he explained that wasn't a bad goal, but wasn't really aligned with what the organization needed to accomplish, so he threw that one out. One he just accepted verbatim and said, you know what, that's a good goal, and I think that you're shooting for the right target here, so that's going to be one of your goals next year. And then another goal he changed a little bit in wordsmith, but it was still basically my idea. And then of course he gave me another goal that he felt was important for my position, based upon what the organization needed to create, and I wound up with 3 or 4 goals that coming year. But what that was not just 3 or 4 goals handed from the top. It was 3 or 4 goals that I was involved in the creation of, and had a process with my supervisor on what my objectives and initiatives were going to be, which put both of us on the exact same page going into the coming year. So number 2 is challenge. Challenge your employees. I think that a lot of times we get scared to challenge employees. Like, oh well, if I push them too much, they're gonna go. Or you know, if I ask for something, I'll just get crickets and they won't come back with anything. Well, maybe in some cases that will happen, but one, you should try anyway. For a number of different reasons. And 2, it's my belief that in this world of chaos, that employees not only want structure, but they also want to be challenged within that structure. And in the strategic planning process, asking them their opinion, which was number 1, and challenging them to create their own goals and be a part of the success of that business are 2 important things. And then the last one is teach. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest casualties, and I talked about this before, of the Great Recession, which we can argue that we may not even be out of, or maybe we're out of it, but it changed us so fundamentally that we'll never be the same as we were in business before that Great Recession. Regardless of how you want to look at it, I believe that one of the casualties that we don't talk enough about of the Great Recession is we've lost mentorship. Everybody's so busy. Even the people that would naturally want to and gravitate to mentoring their employees just simply don't have either the time or the energy or a combination thereof. We need to get back to that. I know it takes some time up front, but it saves so much time in the future and in the back end. But teach. You know, once we've asked our employees their opinion, we've challenged them to give us some objectives for their position, then teach them. Teach them on what the vision means, what the strategic plan is really all about. And you don't need to necessarily give them a 100-page strategic plan, but give them the highlights. Give them the bullet points of the strategic plan going into next year. Teach them why the vision and the mission are important. And last, but certainly not least, teach them and tell them how their involvement of the process helped to shape the strategy for the business. And I don't care if you're a 5-person coffee shop or a 5,000-person financial institution or anywhere in between, doing this process can be very, very valuable for branding the experience for your employees at your particular business or institution. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Again, I'm Ken Bader, hoping that your experience is well branded at your particular business. Take care.